Alright, today we're going to be doing a review of the Xphoto 58mm lens hood. Now, to start off, why would someone buy a third-party lens hood, rather when you can just get one from, Canon brand or whatever brand you might be using? Now, maybe you bought a lens used, or maybe you bought, a lens that never actually came with a hood, but if you're looking into buying a lens hood, you might notice that buying, like I said, maybe Canon brand, those could actually be pretty expensive. I've seen those being sold for upwards of even like $40, even for smaller sizes like this 58mm. So this lens hood was actually only about $6 on Amazon. So that definitely makes it very, very appealing, especially considering how much more expensive they can be. So let's see if this is even worth $6. Maybe it's useless, maybe it's very helpful. Let's take a look. Now, let's take a look at the lens hood itself. Now, one of the first things you'll notice about it is actually pretty small. In size, it actually reminds me a lot more of what you'd see from 52mm lens hoods, kind of like some of the ones that are designed for some of the prime lenses, like the 50mm f1.8. So this is actually very small, which is definitely not a bad thing. It definitely keeps it very small and very light, which, like I said, not a bad thing at all. Here on the front here, you kind of have this little logo, and on the insides, feeling the insides, what you might notice is there's no sort of felt, none of that sort of material inside. So if that's something that was preferable to you, you're going to have to go to a different lens hood, preferably a first party one. Now, one of the most curious things about this is the way it actually attaches to a lens. Let me grab here the 28-105. Now, as you see, unlike other lens hoods where it goes around the lens, this actually screws into the inside grooves inside, very close to the front element. So that's more like what it's going to look like screwed on. It definitely feels pretty strong, pretty tightly screwed on there, but you don't get the sort of satisfying kind of click the way you do with some other lens hoods that screw around the outside. So it's kind of a more interesting design. Whether that's good or bad, it's going to depend on a lot of things. Now, how good does this lens hood actually operate? Now, it actually really depends on the lens you're using. If you're using something that's a standard angle, then it should be fine. If you're using it on a lens that doesn't rotate when it focuses, it's going to be fine. But if you're using it on something like the 18-55mm lens, one of the most popular, if not the most popular 58mm filter thread lenses around, it's actually going to bring up a lot of issues. As you saw, you could actually see some of the lens hood in the extremities of the pictures. Now, the problem with the 18-55, not only is 18mm a pretty uncomfortably wide angle even on crop sensor, but that lens extends and rotates when it zooms and focuses. So even if you get the lens hood on exactly where you want it to be, the top exactly at the top or whatever, if you even focus it a little bit, it could twist and part of it could become into the image. Now, for the most part, that could be solved by zooming in even to around 35, maybe 50mm. But, if you wanted to do something at its widest angle, maybe you want to do landscapes and you don't want, maybe it's a very sunny day and you don't want it to flare in your landscapes, unfortunately you can't actually use this lens. So like I said, if you're using a lens that doesn't rotate when it focuses, fine, great, that's fine. If you're using something more on the standard to telephoto end, fine. I've used this on stuff like the 55-250, very popular telephoto zoom. It's great for that. That should work fine, because even though that lens twists and rotates, it's such a far zoom that you're not going to see any of the lens hood in the picture. Of course, it works fine also on this 28-105, which doesn't do any sort of rotating. So like I said, depends on the lens you have. If you have, like I said, I'll say it one more time, if you have a telephoto lens, fine. Standard lens, fine. As long as it's at least standard, and if it doesn't rotate, that's pretty much all you're going to need. So thank you very much for watching. I hope this helped, and I will see you in the next video.